Yeah, I'm in Portland at the moment, and I've been here most of the year just because I think in June 2019 I made the decision to split time more between New York and Portland, but make Portland kind of my home base, just because my partner is here, and we just went through like a long distance for like 2.5 years before that, and then we kind of needed to be like, either something changes or we can't continue because New York and Portland is like such a big distance for just flying around on weekends. And we decided to make Portland my home base, but then COVID happened, and I was supposed to kind of like split time between New York and Portland, but obviously that didn't happen because this whole year has been crazy, so traveling wasn't really a thing. And weirdly, I've been mostly in Portland. And then the funny thing is, though, that it might have been lucky just because I have a lot of more space to like do my stuff than I would have in New York.
Right.
And then there's like a lot of nature and outdoor stuff that you can still do, which would have been like really hard in New York to do. And then we adopted a little puppy, which I think I would have not done in New York either. So so it's kind of funny how it all worked out in that way. But yeah, the plan was just to like split time, which is the plan still for the future if it ever changes. But yeah, I'm currently in Portland.
You got to be careful, though. Once you adopt a puppy, you might never leave Portland unless you take it with you to New York.
We will. At some point, I want to go back to Europe, where I'm from. I'm from Germany originally. So we kind of plan, like we're training him to be like really well behaved, so he can like actually travel with us in the plane,
right,
and not bark at people in the aisle and things like that. But yeah, I mean, let's see. He's going to be a travel dog for sure.
He has to be.
I'm taking him to paint a mural in February with me, so he's coming with me. So
oh, cool.
Very cool.
He's going to be my paint assistant.
So then take us back. We can start at the beginning. You have an interesting background because, as you said, you're not from the United States. You're from Germany originally, right?
Yeah, yes, that's correct. My family is from Poland originally, and my parents made it to Germany in the 80s, right before I was born. Obviously not legally at the time because it was communism in Poland and the wall in Germany and all these things. So they made it somehow to Germany after they finished college, and just to like have a better future and chances. And they're both doctors. So once I was born, I was like the first one in my family that was ever born in Germany. My brother was born in Poland and everything. So I speak Polish and German as well, obviously. Wow. Yeah, so my parents are very like hardworking people and believe, in like the jobs like being a doctor or a lawyer and all these things, like all the traditional jobs that you can have. So like art was never a thing in our family, which was like good and bad, I guess. But I never knew it's gonna even be like could be a career choice for me. I always thought like, cool, I'm gonna be a doctor because that's what I have to do. And then I went to Ohio weirdly for exchange year when I was 15, I believe. It was like my junior year. So I think, yeah, it's probably like I was like 15 years old. And my host family that I ended up with were like super into arts. And the mother used to be a designer back in the 80s at DKNY in New York. And so I was like experiencing design and art and everything like fully. And I was like, damn, that's like something I can do. It's crazy. And then I took a lot of art classes there too in high school. And the teacher was like, you're good. You should do something with it. I was like, yeah, no, it's fun. I'm just going to, do my hobby and do this. And then when I got home after that, I finished college in Germany. I mean, high school in Germany. And then when the time came to like decide what to do, and in Germany it's very different than here. You kind of have to pick what you want to be with like 17. You just like, you go straight to med school, you go straight to law school. It's not, you don't have undergrad that way. So I was way too scared to do something creative. So I was like, cool, I go to dentistry school. So I got into dentistry school. And then when that started to happen, I was like, there's no way I can do this. Like I was kind of fighting with my mind that this is not the right choice. And I'm going to just like waste my time with something that I appreciate and obviously have like respect for, but like I don't want to do it myself. And I secretly applied to design school, um, which was like a private school in Germany, which is not a thing you normally do. But it was kind of like a safer option because it was they were teaching interior architecture and graphic design at once, so you kind of didn't have to make a choice. I guess you didn't have to like be like, cool, I just do graphic design and figure it out. Like you kind of had the options, and it took also a little longer. Like the study was like 4 years, I think, which is like 30. I mean, which is 6 months, I guess, longer than usually. And so I did that, got in, and then once I got in, I told my parents about it, which
I'm already in. It's happening.
which didn't go too well on my dad's side. He was not happy about it at all, but he couldn't really do anything because I like told the university already that this is going to happen. And yeah, and then my mom was really like, she was like, thank God, like I could not see you as a dentist. Like this is great.
Wait,
so I started doing.
Let me ask you. So when you were in dentistry school, obviously from your time in Ohio, you had a sense that you had some talent and some skill, but with the arts rather. But what was it during your time at dentistry school that made you really realize that this is not going to be it?
I basically didn't really get to start too much in it because I quickly realized doing a internship at a technician lab for dentists, where you make teeth and implants and braces and things like that for patients. I was just doing that, and I was just like, this is like, there's no way I can do that my whole life. I know it's different than dentistry, but I was just like imagining my life, making teeth, working with teeth, and I was just like, there's no way. And I couldn't see myself as like a general doctor because I didn't see the creativity, and in my head, dentistry was like the most creative of all. So, so that was like kind of my choice at that time. I was like, what's the most creative, like medicine-based profession you can do? And that's what I came up with. But yeah, it just really quickly dawned on me that I just can't do it. And in that time when I was in that same time, I was actually painting a lot, and some stores in my little hometown were like, cool, can we display those in our shop window? And I was like, oh, that's cool. So like I kind of wasn't really good at that time, but there was already interest in some of my work, which was, my parents were like, oh, that's funny, that's cool, but right. You go to dentistry, you do your meds thing. And my mom, I guess, didn't say much because she didn't really know what the true me was at that time. I guess she just like figured, okay, if she wants to do dentistry, cool.
Right.
And then also my brother, who's older, he's a dentist, so it was kind of like, cool, we just gonna have two dentist kids, I guess. So no one really questioned it. And then it just dawned on me, and then I was just like talking to my host family in Ohio, and she was like, no, you have to do your thing, just apply to school. And then for that private school in Hamburg, we actually had to have a portfolio to apply, which I didn't have because like I was like, oh man, like what do I do? And then so basically I couldn't do the portfolio at home because my dad would totally see it, or my mom, and they were like, what are you working on? What are you doing? And so I asked them if I could visit my host family in Ohio, and I pretended that I wanted to see my host sister and brother at that time, which were my age. So that my parents were like, cool, yeah, it's like, I think it was like some kind of a break. I was like before college, so I had some time, and I think they were like, yeah, if you want to see them and they're fine with that, just go visit them. So I actually went to Ohio for 2 weeks to do my portfolio with the mom, and the kids weren't even home. They were like both in college, and so I just spent 2 weeks with their mom making the portfolio, and then she drove me around like Ohio and to like art stores to Michael's and whatever, and I was just like doing things for the portfolio. And then when I got back, I um, was too scared to send it away, so I decided like, no way, I'm just gonna stick with medicine or dentistry, and I'm not gonna do this. And then my boyfriend at the time, my first boyfriend in high school, he actually secretly sent in my portfolio to the school. And then I just got a letter for like an interview, and I was like, wait, I didn't even send anything. And then he was like, yeah, well, I did. I'm like, that's so crazy. And I was like really mad at him at the time. But yeah, and then it all fell together, and I started there. And then after doing this for 4 years, I went to work for an architecture company in New York, actually. And they down in Tribeca. And then I realized, no, architecture is not my thing.
What? Why not?
Good for you.
No.
It's way too slow for me. I think I don't have the patience.
It is slow.
And I quickly realized that I need like kind of instant gratification almost. Like I want to make something and have it and see it, and in kind of like the way that I do now. But I realized that quickly with architecture. It's just like a lot of, we did a lot of master plans and case studies, and nothing was really happening. And so I was like, okay, cool. I couldn't really find a job in graphic design at that time yet. And then I decided to go back to school for furniture design. And I did that at the Design Academy Eindhoven in the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, I went back to New York. Funny enough, my old boss from architecture asked me to come back for a project. And I was like, talking to him, I was like, this would be amazing. I have nothing else to do. And it's like perfect. And so the project sounded great. So I went to New York, and then, and then kind of like did the project and applied for other jobs, and found jobs in like more the graphic design world, and started working for startups, and it kind of just like spiraled over from there. And then I was mostly on the brand side for companies for, I don't know how many years, a lot of years, probably like 8-9 years, just doing brand stuff. And then on the side, I always had Studio Proba like slowly happening and building. And that started in like 2013, I think, when I started it, like on the down low, kind of next to my regular job, which I always had to really have because of visa reasons too. Like I couldn't really just freelance or just do my thing without having like a green card or something else. So so Studio Proba kind of started early, but on the side as like a passion project. And then 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago, I went full-time that.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we understand the visa situations. That's all too familiar. So when you finished your first school, well, first I have to say that it's an amazing story that you had help from this. You happened to be studying abroad, and you landed at this home with this mom who was going to help you so much that she would help you produce a portfolio or guide you through the steps for 2 weeks, and then you had...
she's gonna be so happy that like listening to this, I think.
I mean, that's really remarkable. Absolutely. Do you guys still keep in touch?
Yeah, we it's my second family, like my second mom and dad, and the kids. So me and the two kids, we all used to be at New York at some point, but I moved to Portland more or less, and then Alexa, my host sister, she moved to LA, and my brother, my host brother Garen, he's still in New York, but I think he's trying to move out west as well. And both parents are still in Ohio. So yeah, but we keep in touch, and I talk to them quite regularly. And it's been, I mean, I'm almost 35, so it's been like 20 years at this point.
That is that's lovely.
Yeah, we're still all really close.
I feel like, a side note, I feel like everyone's moving from New York these days. I feel like that's the big shift.
The West Coast is the place to be.
I mean, it is nice.
No, for sure. Portland's really nice too. So I didn't know actually that you had ended up in New York working at an architecture office. What was the office?
Studio MDA.
Studio
He
MDA.
It's led by Marcus Dohanchi. He used to
Mm-hmm.
be Zaha's creative director in before 2002, and then in 2002 he moved from London to New York and opened his own.
So you're there, you're doing the architecture thing. Master planning is super slow. I also agree with that. And then you go back to school. Why furniture?
I think it was just like from interior architecture and graphic design. I think and then not noticing that I need like something quicker and I want to make things and I want the instant gratification kind of thing, even though it sounds ridiculous. And furniture was kind of the next logical step in a way, like
Mm-hmm.
to or even like if you want to design furniture or objects, like I kind of wanted to understand the behinds of it in a way to like be able to make it, even though now obviously my business does a lot of things, and half of the things I'm not building myself at this point anymore, obviously, because like there's no way I can keep up with that, right? But like I kind of wanted to understand that process and what it means to like make things. And that's yeah, that was kind of the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, I can understand that because the graphic design is obviously two dimensional, and the interior architecture. I mean, I typically in school, I would imagine it was the same for you. You're making models and stuff, but you're not necessarily making full scale things that have to, support a person or have these other kind of functions to it.
Yeah, exactly. That they don't really have to work, right? And then in school, obviously, you're super conceptual and you like make, I don't know, things that probably don't work in real life.
Yeah,
And
sure.
they look cool, but yeah. So I think that was just like the like being at Studio MDA at the time, which I loved everyone there. It just like kind of like crystallized that architecture might be too slow for me. I still love architecture a lot and like interior architecture, but I think as a profession it was just not what I wanted to do every day. So graphic design is great and I think is a good starting point to like where I am now. Like it all kind of came from graphic design and then combined in interior architecture and I guess a product and furniture, and then kind of went into like the art realm. So I think it all makes sense now, but it didn't when I went on that journey.
That's actually the question I had was, well, one, there's the topic of kind of 2D versus 3D, which is about the work
Mhm.
itself, but more on the, I don't like the career path sounds much too businessy, but career path, let's say, of going from graphic design to interior architecture to the furniture. So it was a very organic thing. Like you just felt naturally drawn to one step and then the next, sort of.
Yeah, it's weird. Like I'm still the same way. Like I do a lot of like mentoring people and like younger kids in college and or out of college that kind of like they're trying to find their path and what to do and reach out to me to if I have time to talk to them about it. And I'm just like, sure, I don't have the answers because like there's no plan I ever made. Like it was just kind of like I just made random decision at the time and just like went for them, and there was like no logic explanation really other than like my gut feeling and my interest. And I think that's still the same case with projects that I work on, things that I want to do. I just like don't really think about it too much. I just like feel like cool, I want to make tables, let's make tables. Like I think it just I don't really ask myself too many like questions if it makes sense in my business plan or if it's the right way or not. Like I feel like I failed a lot in life, and I think that's like the key to like going somewhere, because once you fail you kind of like figure out what's next and where you want to be. And I think without like taking risk and doing that, you can't really go anywhere in my opinion. And I think for me, like I'm not really afraid of like failing or doing messing up, because even if that happens it's like kind of not a big deal. You just learn from it and like make it better the next time. And I think that was the same thing with picking my career. At some point when I got into design school, I was like obviously mad at my boyfriend at the time because he sent in the my application and portfolio. But once I was in it, I was like, okay, whatever. Now it's like I'm gonna fully go for it and just like see what happens. And when I told my parents that I'm gonna do like furniture design, they were like, "What? Like why?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just really want to understand it and figure it out. And it's funny because now, like so many years later, both of my parents are just like, now it all makes sense. Like, and I'm just like, yeah, now it all kind of like came full circle and makes sense, but it wasn't planned by no means. So yeah, like in the beginning, everyone was like, what is she doing? Like, yeah, yeah. So, yeah, it
But
all makes sense now.
But I think there's something elegant, maybe about going through life and one's work that way, and it might even be one of the ingredients that leads to work that appears fresh. I don't really know what that means, but I feel like your work is very fresh for, I think, obvious aesthetic reasons, but there's something else underlying there. And for the designers and artists that we've kind of come across, there's this kind of going throughout life following hunches, sometimes in a very irresponsible way and sometimes in a more responsible way. But, it ends up producing these results that are a little more unexpected, I feel.
Yeah, and I mean that also one comment I have, because a lot of people might be like, yeah, but not everyone can do that. I am really
Sure.
lucky that I could have, because Europe does not charge for school.
Yep.
And even a private school in Germany charges like 500 a semester or something. It's $500. Like, it's not like, you can't even compare it to like the States or something. So
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of my friends here that are in similar paths that I am, they're still paying off student loans and all these things. Like, I don't have any of that. So I think I'm like super, super lucky that I could just go that random path that I made out for myself. And I think it's definitely harder in some other places and countries. So I think if everything would have cost like a lot of money and my parents would have to like support me, or the state would have had to, they would have probably been more concerned about it and be like, hey, you really think like this is the right idea? You really need a furniture degree right now? You think that's what you want to do? Like, they would probably have asked more concerned about it, but just because it didn't really cost too much, I guess, disturbance and like financial or life reasons, like they were kind of like, oh, we don't get it, but okay, cool. So I think I'm super lucky that I could do those things, just because like I know how it costs a fortune to get educated in this country. So like, yeah, so that's like one side comment, because a lot of people will be like, how did you pay for that? But yeah, it's you don't have to really in Europe.
Yeah. So you were saying about kind of, basically the financial difference between school in the States versus schools in Europe. And 100% agree with it. And we were just talking that, when students, they study a more creative profession in a college setting in the United States, they graduate, as you were alluding to, with like $100,000 of debt or whatever. And these professions generally aren't the most lucrative, and so it's like, you're setting people up for a really rough, 10 to 15 years afterwards. So yeah, I think your points make sense. See, that's why we should all just go to school in Europe or France or Germany, and
you guys should.
problem solved.
Yeah, I think you would, like, as an American, you would pay more in Europe. Like, they charge international, but I think it's still less than you would pay here. So,
Yeah.
Was there ever a desire for you to stay and practice design and all of your creative endeavors in Germany? Or did New York was just kind of it? Like, you saw the light there and like that was it?
Yeah, New York was like, it's a weird place for me. It's like a very like happy place for me to be. And it's like very meditative. And I know it sounds crazy because it's New York and it's so busy and hectic. But when I was younger and, and not feeling well, or in college, not feeling out well, or just being like mentally stressed or whatever. And I went to New York, or could go to New York, because at some point I had friends there and I could visit them and stay with them to make like the travel. It's not so expensive. And every time I was in New York, I was like, okay, this is the place. This makes me happy. And I think also the competition and like the hustle you have in New York is very different than you would in any country, I guess, in Germany, but in any place, I guess. And I think that motivates me, and that kind of like pushes me on, to like move forward. And when you kind of struggle to make rent and struggle to like pay the bills, like I think that's kind of what motivates me in a weird way. And that I feel like I needed that to start as like a young adult, I guess, to just like be responsible for my own life, but then also make it like extra hard and be in New York, I think was kind of like a thing that I knew I needed personally. And I kind of wanted to prove mostly my dad that, you know, I can do it and I shouldn't have stayed in dentistry school, even though he believed that for a long time. And it took me a while, probably over 10 years to like prove him like wrong, I guess. But so that was like kind of another motivation, was like, you know, prove like my dad in a weird way to like prove him wrong. And then New York just like using that as like someone that kicks you in the butt all day. So I think I kind of needed that, and I didn't really think about other places. And the plan was to like stay in New York for a year, but you know how it happens, like it just happens and you go from one thing to another, and then it's like 10 years, 11 years, and you're still there. So yeah, I think I didn't really, like, as I said before, I didn't think out my path at all. So like I kind of just like went every step the way, just like whatever came in the way. So I mean, now I'm kind of like trying to do more projects in Europe, and I would love to like be able to be back there at some point, but that's just like a recent kind of development.
Well, would you be in New York right now if it wasn't for the boyfriend motivation to move to Portland?
Probably. I mean, the idea was just, I mean, last year, pre-COVID, I traveled probably like 150, 180 days out of the year, probably even more. I feel like I spent so much time in the plane, and between seeing him, but also just for my murals, like I painted, I don't even know how, like over 30 murals that last year, or like close to 30, something like that. And they all in different places. So I think I was just traveling for my job, and then obviously for my relationship. And so the plan was to do the same thing this year, but just like spend a little bit more time here. So yeah, I don't know where I would be right now. I mean, now it's like the holidays. Probably I would be here spending the holidays with him, but yes, I would have been like back and forth more.
I mean, I think your description of the city, New York City, is also one I would agree with. It feels sometimes like this support you have behind you, a very aggressive support system that will not take no for an answer, and other times it can feel kind of oppressive. It's a weird thing. Like when we're there, you get used to the noise and all of that kind of what would appear to be chaos. And then, like, I do remember when I would come back west to visit my family for a week or whatever. But when I came out to the West Coast for like a vacation, I found the massive sky, the lack of buildings, lack of people, like very frightening. I was actually scared of it. I'm like, this is not normal. This is something happened to the city. Yeah, where are the people? And then once you get back to New York, it's like, oh, this feels comfortable to be surrounded by a bunch of strangers.
That's weird. It's the same for me. Like whenever I go back to France, I have anxiety when I'm in France. You know, it's almost too familiar, and New York kind of like calms things down in some weird ways.
Yeah, so it's an interesting transition, right? That happened for you. You came back to New York City, and you became art director or design director at a couple of different places, really well known and very established places like Kickstarter, Mother, and Nike. And was when you were in those positions, did you? Why not stay in that realm? Why not just do that instead of pursuing your own thing?
Interesting. Yeah. So I think Kickstarter is a good example, just because kind of like a little before Kickstarter, I started doing my first project that kind of blew up, and I didn't expect it to be, but I did the poster day kind of project where I did a poster every single day without really knowing who I am or what my art style is or what I want to do. I just kind of felt like I needed an outlet outside of work and outside of the brand side and outside of like the familiar. And at that time I had like no followers on Instagram, so other than my friends. And I was like, hey guys, I'm just going to do this project every day and see how long I last. And my friends were like, yeah, right, okay, you're gonna last like 5 days or whatever, because there was like no real plan to it or concept to it, other than just making a thing every day. And I started doing that right before Kickstarter, and then I think at Kickstarter I kept doing that. So like I was at Kickstarter, and then I would go home and just do a poster at night, because I kind of used, in the first year, I used it, my day-to-day as like inspiration of the posters to kind of like have a diary in a way, that is more visual. And so I kept doing that and kept posting every day. And even if they were ugly, like at that year, I gave myself like 30 minutes to make one, and whatever happens after 30 minutes, I would post, which is like a crazy thing for a designer or architect or anyone to do, just because you're never happy about something. You always can like keep moving pixels around, or brush strokes or whatever you want to do. And I think that was kind of like me being okay with putting things out there that I might not be okay with, but just like putting things out there and just like using that platform of Instagram at that time, which was super new. And I think I needed that creative outlet outside of work, and that kind of like, the more I did that, the more I saw that, there is like a world for me outside of like a regular good full-time job, and all these jobs are great. Like I can't complain about what I had. And then once I moved on to Mother, at the time at Kickstarter, I actually applied for my green card, and I didn't want to be sponsored by anyone, because I didn't want to be tied to a company for it, just because of the financial reasons that they pay for it and then they kind of like make you stay a little bit longer. And I didn't want to have that. So I tried to apply myself, like self-sponsor myself through my studio at that time, for a green card. And then the plan was like, cool, if I get the green card, I'm just going to go solo. And so I got the green card, but didn't go solo. I was like way too afraid of that. I needed to have like the balance, I guess, between my solo work and work, just because like the normal work was like my kind of like comfort, where I knew I'm going to pay the bills, I'm going to be fine. And then my own stuff was just like kind of the outlet that I needed outside of work. And so I went on to Mother as a design director, where I had a team that I had to like actually manage. And you have like client, like you basically the person that also speaks to the client. And obviously you have a CD above you, but you kind of, run the show within your team. And I realized that, you don't design that much anymore. You kind of just like managing, review and inspire and things like that. And I realized that that's not really me either. I kind of want to just I'm a maker. I just want to create and make stuff, and I want to work together with people as a team, but I don't think I want to direct people that much. And then I decided to go solo after I spent some time at Mother, and I was like, okay, now is the time. I have a green card. I can do this. Like my poster project, like kind of was blowing up, which was surprising, but like that was probably already the second year at Mother, and I turned it like to people submitted stories, and I created visuals for them. So like I kept like changing every year of the poster day. And in the end, I made 4 years and had to stop, because I was like, 4 years, it's probably enough. And like, no one else needs to see this. But it kind of made me who I am. And then at that point, it opened the door to people noticing me on my work. So I had like an audience big enough to like maybe try to do my own thing. So I did that. I like quit and went to start my own thing. And I think that lasted a couple of months. And then Nike came along. And I was just like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to just stick with my gut, and I'm just going to do Studio Proba. I'm going to do this. And then Nike kept knocking, and I was just like talking to my mom about it. And she was like, you should do that. Like, it's Nike. It's great. I was like, I know. It's like the dream company that I always wanted to work at, but it didn't come at the perfect time, I guess. And then in the end, I decided to do it because I was like, okay, I can figure it out. I can do both things. So I started working at Nike, and I was super happy. And it's like a great company, amazing projects. Like I don't think I had better projects in my life than from a company than at Nike. And I still managed somehow to do my studio at night and then weekends, but it really was tough because you don't want to, like, I don't want to slack in my job and just do poorly because I want to do my studio. So I think I always try to like be conscious about that, and it was working pretty well. And then when I actually met my now partner at a job at Nike, it started to become really hard just because at some point I had like a relationship that was long distance. I had a full-time job at Nike and I had a full-time studio. So at that point I was just like, there's like no way, I can't handle this. This is like way too hard. I can't do all these three things. This is not cool. Because like I had like no time for myself, and everything was just like stressful. Like flying for a weekend to Portland was stressful. Like going and working at Nike long hours was stressful. My everything was just stressful, and I wasn't like handling it too well. So at that point I was like, okay, I need to choose, get rid of one thing out of those
the
three
boyfriend
things.
Or Nike.
I was like, the boyfriend or Nike, there's no way I can get rid of my studio just because I care way too much about it, and it's like who I am and what I want to do. So I chose, for the first time I think in my life, I chose my life over career, which is a very scary thought. And I think my parents, obviously, like my mom, that I talk a lot about when I have like decisions to make, she was like, oh God, I don't know, what are you going to do? Are you going to make money? Will you be able to pay bills? I was like, I don't know. I hope. And but yeah, it was the first time that I was just like, okay, it's the time to pick life over career, and the thing that I really care about over career, which was a weird thought, but so I chose my studio and my boyfriend. So and that's why I parted with Nike and no other reason, and that's also what they know, and they totally accepted it and were totally good with it. So in a different life I probably would still be there, but how all the circumstances like happened in my life, like it just made me choose that. And it's now 2.5 or almost, it's a long time, I don't even remember the days, so almost 3 years after that, and I don't regret it. So
it's funny, I think we can talk afterwards, but I think we might have actually very parallel tracks in a sense, because we were both, oddly, I think, in New York City at the same time, and it seems like we all had left our jobs, our security, around the same time as well. But going back then to this initial project of Instagram posts that you would do every day, which I just naturally assumed this is like you probably did this for a year, but instead you did it for 4 years, which is puts it into another league. Were they strictly like two-dimensional sketches? Like, what were the nature of these posts?
Yeah, so again, another project that just started without a plan of what it is. And I think soon, in like day 15 or something, I don't remember, I realized it's kind of like a diary. And then I was like, cool, that's actually nice. Like, that makes me more motivated. Like, always do it at the end of the day and see, when you're going to look back in the future, like the future to the past, you will be like, oh, cool, I had breakfast sausage that day or whatever. Like, you just like, whatever the poster was, you kind of like remember today. And, sometimes I have trouble remembering what I did 2 days ago. So I thought that was a cool thing to do, and if not for other people, just for me to just like do it. And so I kept doing it. And even if I went out at night with friends and had like a glass too much of wine, like I still did a poster and then posted it. And then the next day I sometimes had comments like, hey, it's so pixelated. Like, were you drunk? Like, are you okay? And I'm like, oh God, whatever. Yeah, I was, like it was kind of just like a reflection of my life, which was nice. And I kind of learned to give, the anxiety of sharing work. Like, I kind of like tried to get rid of that and try to get rid of like being judged for bad design or a bad sketch or whatever. And I just like completely ignored it, which was weird, and just kept posting. And obviously now it's like almost 1,500 posters that I made in that time, and there's probably half of them that I really am not proud of. So, but they're out there, and some people like them, and it's like a really like a big learning curve for me to like notice that not whatever I like, is always what everyone likes. And I think once the project became like more known, which happened through Sight Unseen. They kind of picked it up and posted about it, and I was like, holy shit! And that was probably day 100 or something like that, like pretty early. And then it became more serious because like the following keep growing, and I was like, oh god, now it's becoming a thing. I didn't want it to be a thing. I just wanted to see how long I can go. But then I didn't see like an end, just because I had like more like an audience, and the work was like kind of based on just like sketches I did, like drawing on Illustrator, or manipulated photography from like stock images, where I, used the stock photography from an elephant and placed him on something. And so it was like a mix of like collage, drawing, photo, montage kind of thing. And yeah, and so after the first year, which was my diary, I decided to do a second year and turned it into like your diary. Basically, I asked the audience to like submit on my website things that they, like, I didn't tell them what to tell me. I was just like, just tell me your story or whatever you want to tell me. And I will create a visual for that every day. And at that point, I think I gave myself at least an hour every day, just because I needed to like, I read the emails and the stories in the morning, so I could like think about which story to do at night, so I could like actually do something in an hour. And in my head, because my work is super colorful and was super colorful at that point in time too, I expected like really happy stories and just like funny things. And there was just like a lot of negative stories and a lot of like really sad stories, where I realized that some people are using me kind of as like almost like a therapist or someone that can tell a secret, because like I didn't publish the story in that year. You could like, and you could have anonymous, like I could put on Instagram, like even David, you submitted the story, you chose to be anonymous. But so it was just like really interesting, because I got really crazy stories and sad stories and of trauma or cancer and rape and all of these crazy stuff, where I was just like, holy shit, what did I just open up to here? Like, what is this? But then I decided to just like embrace it and just create something positive out of the negative that they're telling me. And was hoping that that was the reason why they're telling me that, is like to take something like positive out of it and out of the bad. And so I did that for like a year, and then again I couldn't stop, and then it becomes kind of like an addiction almost. And then the third year I did hours, which was more kind of a conversation between me and the audience. So people were able to ask me questions that then I answered visually, and then on Instagram you could see the question, and if the person chose to be anonymous or not, you could see the name and then the question, and then my answer was like the visual to it. And then the fourth year, which was election year, not this election year, but the first one, right. Where Hillary was running, I kind of did it hers, and I asked the audience to submit stories about women that inspire them in some kind of capacity, or that they want to like pay tribute to. So people would submit stories about that, about their mothers and grandmoms and teachers and all these things. And then at that year, I think, which was weird because unfortunately, in my opinion, Trump won. And I was just like, there's no way I can do year 5 and do like a his or something, just because after hers, I should have done his. But I was like, no one deserves this right now. So I kind of like stopped the project and was like done after 4 years.
That's an amazing continuity, but also evolution. And I really like the kind of like very subtle or light, structure, very, very light structuring of each of the years and themes, if you'd call them a theme. How did you, I have to go back and look at these posts. I'm now very curious.
You should not.
So the first year was very much kind of spontaneous, or half an hour, you're doing it, it's for you, right? That's your vision and understanding of it. That's kind of the direction, let's say. But the second year, you start to engage with the audience, and you're receiving these very, very emotional, very deep, very personal stories. What was it like kind of translating those stories to a graphic? Was there hesitancy with doing that? Like, how do you even approach that?
I mean, it was like, sometimes I think like 80% of the time the feedback I got back from that person was like, oh my God, you understood what I was saying, which is surprising because a lot of them are sometimes abstract, sometimes weren't that abstract. And I think, that's why I would read the story in the morning. All the
Yeah.
email submissions that I would get, I would just read them in the morning and kind of like throughout the day, every minute I had that I wasn't working or something on it at lunch or something, I would like think about like images that resonate with those stories, and then whichever email I had the most like images in my head to like translate it, I picked that night. um but yeah, it wasn't I mean, some were easier because they gave me like some were really long and they gave me so many visual cues, and some gave me like none, and I was like, like I tried to like then visualize the emotion that I felt reading it, or so it was like really hard. But again, I gave myself no longer than an hour, because if I would, otherwise the project would fail, because like there's no way I
Right.
can dedicate so much time every day for something. Like let's say I come home late or something, like there's no way I can, dedicate 4 hours to like do this masterpiece. And it wasn't about that. So yeah, I mean, you should look at them, but they're all very different. And towards the end, maybe in the last year, you kind of see my visual language closer to what I'm doing now, which is like a nice thing too, because I kind of like found who I am through that project and who I'm not, which is good. But yeah, one story that is a good example, and I will probably remember forever, is an interesting one, and maybe it will give you some, clarification to your question. But it's this girl in Sweden that emailed me like one morning, and I was like actually walked on. I just finished a run with my boyfriend at the time, and we were fighting the whole time about it because it was like super early and I'm not a morning person. And I was like, oh, why am I running? I was like complaining about it. I was just like not happy about on the run and being on the run that early. I was like, I can go later or whatever. I was just complaining. And then when I got home, I read these emails and I was like, oh, holy moly, like this is crazy. So this woman emailed me, and she was 29 years old at the time, and she emailed me from Sweden that this super sad story, and it goes like it's really long. And she was diagnosed with cancer, I think lymphoma cancer of some kind, and she was like battling it for a couple of years. And I think she's like at that time probably close to my age, like we're the same age. I was like, holy shit, like cancer and like dealing with all this hardship, and like this is crazy. So, and she like described the whole thing about like going through therapy, losing all her hair and all these things. And then she kind of like twisted into the positive, and she was like, well, in like a couple of days it's my birthday and I'm turning 30, and that's also the last day of chemo, and I'm super hopeful, and I think I'm good now. I'm like over it. Like 30 is going to start great, and this is going to be amazing. And then she said basically the last sentence was something like, and the only thing I really miss and I'm so excited to do again is go for a run with my dog. And then I was just like, oh my God, like I'm the worst person. Like I literally just like ran complaining about it, like that I'm running and this is insane. Like this person is dealing like with cancer and she can't just go for a run, and so weirdly that story just like really that touched me at that day, just because I was complaining, and then I realized how great my life actually is, and then I should be thankful for being able to go for a run. And so what I did is like I did a poster for her with like I don't know how you call the flower in English, but it's like I think it's a gladiolus. It's like the gladiator flower. That means like survival and you like power through. So I made an image of that flower, and then on the flower I made like a little figurine running with a dog. So that was like her visual that she got for her story, and I just like printed it out, asked for her address, and sent it to her hospital because I just was so touched by her. And then she like reached out and she was like, this is like that just made my day, and this is like the coolest thing ever. And so yeah, I actually had like a longer conversation with her after that, and yeah, so that's like a good example of a story where I and there was so many stories like that, but I think that one just touched me so much just because I was a dickhead and I was just like complaining. So yeah, so it was kind of like a therapy for me as well, I guess, that project, like, knowing, like, to see how well I actually had it.
That's incredible.
It's very interesting to me because I feel like a lot of artists or designers sometimes are a little too introverted or self-centered onto themselves, but it seems like for you, really, like, kind of the social responsibility or like social contact with people is really what maybe propulsed you to where you're at today, in a way, right? Like, it encouraged you and get you going on your creative path to actually find yourself, which is interesting because it seems like you've discovered your own artistic language by reading and responding to other people, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and again, nothing of that was planned either. It was just like all just like this natural, it just happened. And I think why I couldn't stop this project was because of the people. I think because I had this audience on the other side, I had this expectation on the other side. Like in the first year, like I could have stopped whenever because like who cares? It's like my diary. Like no one really, like it's just like some kind of visuals with no meaning really added into myself. And I think with turning it to an audience, it gave it this greater meaning, and like it kept me more accountable to like actually like stick to it and not stop, because I had this like lined up stories or people that actually took the time to sit down and tell me something. Like I just couldn't like not do it, right? So like I think that kicked my butt as well, and just like accountability and like doing it and do my homework. So yeah, but even now I still love working with other people, and I think that's the biggest part I miss with running my own business, and especially this year where it's so isolated. But right before COVID happened, I actually did this workshops with kids and collage workshops with kids, and then I showed them like my work and my rugs and was like, cool guys, this is my work, this is my rugs, like do you want to do something, like do you want to make some rugs? And then so they all made collages that then they picked their favorite and I turned them into like rugs. And I love those projects that are that are not just me but involve like others. And yeah, that's like, if I could do that every day, that would be awesome.
Is your studio only, well, currently it's only you, but pre-COVID, did you have any like other people helping you out in the studio, or is it like all on you basically?
It's all on me, actually. Yeah, it's all me, from design to production to email to like to anything, distribution, whatever you want to count in there. But I do have a roster of assistants for mural painting. So I don't paint by myself because I could like started painting by myself, but it just takes way longer, obviously, because it's just you. And then in that time I'm not able to do anything else. So I think having helpers at murals is very important to me. So I mostly paint with one to three other people that help me paint. So I have them, but they just like mostly obviously contractor basis or like how freelance basis, I guess, whenever I paint a mural, because that's not like a daily thing. And then I have a couple of designers that I work with every now and then. One main one, and she's in Paris actually. But that's also not a full-time, but that's like maybe like a part-time thing wherever I have projects. And then I have, so I have designers for sure that I use sometimes. And then I have one person that does like a lot of like my 3D visualization. So it is my team, but they're not like full-time. They're kind of just like, not even freelance. They're just like part of my studio, but in a different kind of way.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I want to also talk about, because you had mentioned a couple times that this Instagram kind of experiment is a significant part of what led you to understand your own style, if you would use that word. How did that transition happen, or how did it become clear for you? Was it a natural thing, or like it's just through the progression you started to realize you had an affinity toward certain directions?
Yeah, I think like if you later on look at I can send you a link, but I still have it on a Tumblr what they're all on. And if you kind of like scroll through them, you will see that the last year is kind of visually more connected and cohesive than all the other years before. And I think it's that year I realized, like, I kind of expressed myself a lot through like abstract shapes or lines and like things like that I kind of use now in my work. And actually some of my first rugs that I did are from that series, that I just turned those designs into rugs. And that's kind of how I like landed in like the rug business. And so, yeah, I think it's just like naturally, like, even if you just look at it, even if someone that is not a designer or artist looks at it, like my mom, she does totally see like the connections, like a pretty obvious, like cohesive year in a way. And I think that happened through like color and shapes and using more like an abstract language rather than like a literal, I guess.
Right, quoting other things directly. And then the transition to go off on your own. You were doing Studio Proba on the side, and you had some side projects and things like this. But that leap, is still a pretty big one. And I think especially for people who are more in the kind of who straddle the line of art and design, and maybe more artists than designers, that's even more of a risk. When you decided to go on your own, did you have things lined up? Did you feel enough security to do that, or was it really a work-life balance?
No, I mean, I didn't really have anything like major lined up. I mean, I had my, rugs and all these things were running next to my job all the time, so I had that security, I guess, in some kind of capacity. But then I think when I made the decision of leaving my full-time job and deciding to like do my own thing and relationship, I actually got an email from Dropbox in SF because I painted their HQ in New York with a friend of mine, and that was like maybe a year before Nike or something like that. And that was like my first mural I did without even knowing I could do that. And then right when I decided to like leave my job, Dropbox emailed if I can do this giant mural for them. And I was like, okay, perfect timing. Yes, I left Nike in December and then painted like the first week of January that giant mural in SF. So I think it wasn't lined up at the time, but it just happened to like come into it in the perfect time. And then that was kind of like a sign for me to be like, okay, cool, I'd be okay. And if not, I just find a job. So I think that Dropbox mural kind of was like the leap of hope almost. Like I was like, okay, cool, I can do this. I'm gonna go, before I go to visit my boyfriend, I'm just gonna stop in SF, paint this mural, and then go to Portland. So yeah, I think it all just came together. And then after that, I think after the mural in SF, everything just like came together, and I got a lot of other murals requests, and the mural business really started to happen.
Cool.
How do you go from creating design and arts from you, with no one asking you to create things necessarily, to actually respond to a client who's hiring you for the job? Does that change your creative process? Is it more difficult? Does it not make a difference?
No, not really. Just because the client is not asking me to like do something else that I'm doing. They're asking me to do my art, right? They're hiring me for me, basically. So there are obviously clients, like bigger companies, that make me or ask kindly to use like a brand color or two from them, just like to tie it in kind of to like their space or what they stand for. Or when I did a basketball court for the Pixel Google launch in New York, and they were super, super great to work with, and they only asked me to use 2 of the Google colors and then any other colors I want. But so I ended up using the yellow and the blue, which I'd use anyway in my work. So I think just because they're hiring me for my art, it doesn't make it much different, because I'm still expressing myself. And then if it's something that I don't agree with, where sometimes there's requests like, hey, but we want a smiley face in it. I'd be like, cool, you found the wrong person.
That's smiley.
Just like weird requests like that, like that I don't feel comfortable with, I will just say no to. And I mean, there's like some that are like hard, like that I write on the border and I know I can make them work. Like I did a mural for an ice cream shop here in Portland, and they were just kind of asking if I could tie in their ingredients a little bit, and I was like, "Oof, that's gonna be so hard." And they were just like, "Yeah, but it's like, however abstract, like it doesn't matter. But if I could have a meaning to it," and I was like, "Oh, that's probably actually easy," because then when I thought about it, I was like, "Oh, a strawberry, the shape kind of works in my world," or or like chocolate chip ice cream, or like whatever. Cookie dough, whatever, with like the sprinkles. I was like, that works as a pattern. Like, so I think those I can like answer, but the soon they become too far away from my own like work or what I believe in or stand for, I probably will say no. But like, I don't get much of those requests just because I think people really just know that they want that my work on their wall or inside of the pool or whatever it is. So I think it's been quite easy in that.
Gotcha.
Interesting. Yeah, I suppose if someone's like, we need the drawing of a refrigerator in the center of your mural, make it happen. Maybe not. So on the question of process, then, do you have a discernible process you go through for different types of projects? Is there, I don't know, maybe on the extreme there would be a step-by-step process, so I kind of doubt that's there, but is there some kind of understanding of process?
Yeah, I think it depends on the project. I feel like the last few years have been a lot about about murals for me, and like paintings in general, or like more my art business, let's say. And then this year, actually, through COVID, I did more on the brand side again, just because even though some people don't even know that I do brand, I just finished this summer a project for Harry's, which is like the shaving brand from New York, for their new brand that's launching in a month, and which was super fun because like it takes me back to like my roots and takes me back to like that kind of world of just like design thinking and like pure graphic design, and just doing that. And I didn't need to travel for it, obviously. So there's like obviously the normal process from like seeing what the client needs and what the requests are, and then from like mood boards to the worlds that their brand can live in, through like dissecting that and then picking the world and then creating the directions on like based on that choice. And there's like clear steps, and then once they pick a logo, you have this, and then you have that, and then in the end you like deliver a style guide, and like there's like a clear process, I think, in projects like that. And then and then you share deliverables, and you're done with the project. And then obviously if they have questions, they come back. But so that one is like a super step-by-step project. And then other is like I guess my murals in a way have a process too, just because in the end I am a brand and graphic designer, and I think when someone emails me about a project or a mural, like obviously I need to know like what size is the wall, what size, what height, what material, and all this stuff. And then based on that, and I often ask them like to share the pieces they love most of my work, just because then I can like kind of like gauge like cool, the starting point is like super bright colors or super subtle, like whatever it is, and I can like kind of I understand what they like about my work, and then I create designs for them, mock them up in like situ, like you in architecture do, and like sometimes build a 3D model with it. Like with the pools, actually I built the pools into 3D, and we put the art in there so they can kind of imagine it better, how it looks in real life. And then from there they pick a design, and then I go and paint it. So I think that's a pretty clear process too.
Yeah.
So I never just like go show up at a client's like site and start painting without them knowing what it is. Like it has to be like approved, and and then obviously once they choose one, I have to like get the colors mixed and so on. So yeah, so I think there's like always a process. Same with my rugs, and I do custom rugs, and like if people want like different shapes and sizes, like that follows a process. And all rugs are like made to order. My new collections are maybe less of a process. I don't follow like a calendar, like some, like in, like in the fashion world, like the spring, fall, winter, whatever, like all this stuff. I don't follow any of that. I just do whenever I feel like new work. Whenever I'm ready to post something or launch something, I do. But yeah, I think that's like as much process as there could be.
Yeah, that makes sense. So in the case of like some of these murals, the client actually really has a clear understanding of what they're getting and what's going to happen before you go out and do the thing.
Before I paint, yes.
Yeah, right.
What's your favorite kind of project so far?
The pools.
The pools, right?
Really?
Yeah, they're pretty awesome.
Yeah. I think that's my favorite thing to do. Yeah.
How did the first one come to you?
So I have this like list folder and it's called Dream Project. So I have
Really?
a full list of that, and one of them is actually pools, and then I always wanted to paint a pool, and then I did a lot of research about it, and it's actually really hard because like the pool paint that you use for pools doesn't exist in any other colors other than red, black, white, and that turquoise blue thing. So I was like, damn it, like how can I make this work? So there must be a solution to this. And then this interior design company that from LA reached out to me that they have a client and they have a pool and that would be awesome. And I was like, oh my God, like I do it for free even, like I just want this pool, and this is my dream project. And they were just like kind of shocked by my excitement because they were just like, oh, okay. They were like kind of shocked by why I was reacting that way. And they, because I have a lot of like people that reach out, and I sent them my estimate and then never hear back from them, because I think a lot of people don't understand how much work actually goes into something like that.
Yeah.
And the cost and labor. And it's actually really hard labor. Like anyone who paints with me or painted with me, or like friends that want to try, they're always just like, oh my God, can I go home? I'm dying. Like it's really hard on your body, and people just don't think about it. And so a lot of them, my estimates just like go unanswered. And so to not have that happen, I like shared my excitement right away with that company, because I was like, no, I need this, whatever, like we can figure this out. And yeah, so they were super stoked about it. And then I think, I don't know really what happened, but I think that the actual house owner kind of was like, I don't really know what happened, but they were kind of like they were just like, no, we need to spend money on like other things. And I don't think we can make this a priority or whatever it was. And I got super bummed about it. And then I was like, okay, I need this pool. I need a pool. So I did like a 3D render and posted it on Instagram. I was like, really want to paint this pool. Like I need a pool basically. And then the house owner saw that render and were like, holy shit, we want this. I was like, okay, cool, thanks. Like, so I think they couldn't visualize it, I think, to do the choice, like this is like a priority kind of thing. And for their house, like they were just like, they didn't know how it's going to work out and look. And then when they saw that render, they were just like, okay, cool, let's do it. And I was like, oh, thank God, like, thank you. And then they were just like, yeah, so how does it go? Like, do you have to pay for this? And I was like, because they were like, can it work with salt water? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know any of that. Like,
yes, it can. How do I do that?
I was like, give me a couple of days. I figured this out. And then it took me a while and I figured it out. And it works with chlorine and salt water and all this stuff. And yeah, and then I have an intern actually here in Portland that helps me out a lot. And she's a trained painter and she's amazing. And she actually came out with me to Palm Springs and we just painted the pool without really knowing what we were doing. And it was like the coolest project. It's like really fun. I mean, it's kind of painful after a while. Like everything really hurts because you're like in these weird positions inside of a pool that is like curved, obviously, inside too. And you can't really step on the stuff that you already painted. So it's like kind of like a labyrinth, always just like a big puzzle where you step on. And then new hours in like that pool that has like no airflow. and
Right.
then it's like super hot and the sun is like blasting. So I think it sounds crazy and it doesn't sound fun, but it's actually really fun. And it's and then once you're done with the pool, and it looks amazing without water, and then you don't know what the water will do to it once the water is in, and then it's like transforms the pool again and like creates like a whole other dimension to it. It's just like the coolest project that I've experienced.
How many have you done so far?
I've done that one, and then I am doing one in Palm Springs in February, and then one in Mexico in November.
I think it's so interesting because it's, you know, you're applying what you would assume to be kind of a two-dimensional way of working, right? I mean, it is two-dimensional, but then applying it to a very three-dimensional surface, and also in a very unexpected place. Like the idea of painting a pool, as you said, there's not really that many pool colors out there. You don't see it happen that often. So did you have to contact like the paint manufacturer and be like, can you make a custom thing for me?
Yeah, basically. I contacted a lot of paint manufacturers, and funny enough, in Australia, they have more colors for pools, but also not really the colors I needed. And so, yeah, I contacted all the paint manufacturers I could, and then found one that connected me with one paint person that was willing to do it with me. So, yeah.
Amazing.
It took a lot of calls and convincing, and no, it's gonna work. Like it took a lot of that.
So what other projects are in your book of dream projects?
Oh, I mean, that one, like a lot of, I think, mural people have done that, but I just haven't. Is just a facade of like a big building. Like maybe that brings me back to architecture again, but like that would be kind of really cool to see, just like even just like a whole block of like houses. And then it's like obviously like all the traditional ones from like basketball courts and all these like sport courts or things like that to paint, like everything that you normally don't really have painted, I guess, even though basketball courts are happening much more. And then I really like, I don't know if you're familiar with my public sculptures, but the sculptures that I placed in like the deserts and like my visuals, it would be kind of amazing to be able to do like a kids playground with them. So like kind of like a Alice in Wonderland kind of thing for kids is another one. Then another project that I always wanted to do is like it sounds weird because that's kind of my like Proba home thing, but like my brand for my home furnishing. But it would be cool to have like a Proba house almost, where it's like in the middle of the desert or something, where you can visit and like every item is like made by me, from like the door handle to like the outside painted, and hopefully a pool, whatever it is, from like the couch and everything, the plate, everything is like created by me. And that's another one that I have in my books too.
That would be really.
Let me know when that one happens. I would definitely come by.
I know. I mean, that one I probably need an investor for or something. But.
That's a really cool idea though, because, and this kind of gets to another question in a way where, you know, your work spans from the 2D to the semi 2D, 3D, like reliefs, right? And then the textures, and then to full 3D things. And the way I kind of see it is like this home project you're talking about would end up being like the fully three-dimensional, like an environment where you're inside of your work, right? Is it difficult to transition from 2D to 3D? Like, how does that translationship work? Because I feel like I've seen some 2D artists go to 3D, and it sometimes feels like just how do I explain it? It almost feels like there are 2D artists who attempted a 3D work, and it looks kind of just like a shadow of what it used to be in 2D. Does that make sense? Whereas yours feels really...
It's just like, basically like just extruded, like if you just like...
Yeah, there's something else there that's missing. It seems like it's too much of a direct translation, whereas yours seems to be powered by something else. I
mean, maybe it's the background or like the experience in like architecture offices in a way, just because one thing that I learned from my former boss there is like, you know, there's a lot of architects that are great. I'm not going to name names right now, but like there's like a lot of great architects where like the front looks really good but the back is bad. And I think because a lot of like architects or a lot of people focus on what's the visible thing, what is the audience going to see, what is the first thing a person sees approaching this building or whatever it is. And I think my former boss, Marcus, he was like always very adamant about like the full picture instead of just like the front. So yeah, that's like one thing that I keep being reminded of. Even if I like extrude a shape or something, I want to have it look good in all different angles, from any angle you look on it. And that's the same way kind of with the murals, even though the murals are still 2D, but no matter what angle you like look at, like it changes. So like I need to like make sure that all of these angles look good. And I think maybe that experience from being in furniture or architecture kind of like makes it easy for me, because I don't really think too much about it. I just I'm doing this new table collection, and I just really did it pretty quickly in the last 2 weeks, and I was just like, this is gonna be easy, this is gonna happen, I'm gonna make this. And then I got got the first prototype in yesterday, and I'm just like, yes, it works, it looks perfect, it looks great from every angle, this is gonna be great. And it's gonna it's like a flat pack, like they're gonna be shipped flat pack, and you can just assemble them yourself. And I think it's just like, when I believe in my brain that it's going to work, it's mostly going to work. And I think it's just like, maybe my head just visualizes it in a way differently than others. And I think if that's the case, and I'm happy to hear that, is probably the background in architecture, I would say.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, I think like, I'm trying to think through it. Maybe there's a sort of a difference between, you know, having a concept or an abstract idea, but that idea doesn't have a particular dimension or form to it, right? And so you're able to kind of, with your skill set, realize it in different ways, versus I feel like some people are very much, their concepts are tied to a specific medium or specific dimension, right? And when they try to push it to another one, it starts to, at the beginning at least, perhaps, feel a bit like it's been forced, or that they're not understanding from the other perspective.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because like a lot of like my things, like the rugs, like I always want to dimension in even a flat, even though it's an object, I kind of try to get dimension in it and different heights of piles. And sometimes like in the beginning, when I started doing it, I did it too extreme that it became like a walking hazard, actually. So my grandma was like, no, you can't use this. And I'm just like, oh man, okay, maybe I can't go that extreme. I can't go like 3 inches up, because that becomes actually like hard to like walk on. But then with my pillows and stuff, like, you know, like even though they flat object, like kind of flat objects, like I always try to get like that dimension in it. And I think just because I've always been doing that part, it kind of like made the translation really easy and just like a full dimension in a way.
Right. I have to say, speaking for Marina, she is obsessed with your pillows. I've heard, I hear for the last, like, I don't know how many weeks or whatever, every day it's like, oh, these pillows are amazing. I'm like, yeah, I can.
I'm trying, you know, to say it's Christmas coming, so I'm hoping that maybe Santa Claus is going to listen.
Okay, well, setting up for either disappointment or excitement. I'm not sure.
That's funny.
We'll see. Is there anything outside of the design world that inspires your work directly? Like, I don't know, running or plants or travel?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I get that question, like what you inspired by, a lot. And to be honest, like I think it's really easy to be inspired by other creatives. It's so easy, right? We have Instagram, we have Pinterest, we have all that stuff that, you know, didn't exist a while back. And even in school, I didn't have that, right? You still had to like read books and do all these things, and or just like search the web for stuff. But visual information wasn't like that accessible at that time. And I feel now you have it like everywhere. And I try really hard to not be inspired by that. So I try not to look at it if I can. Obviously I look at Instagram, and there, you know, probably I'm inspired like unconsciously by some stuff, by maybe a palette or whatever it might be. But I'm actually trying really hard to make it a case not to be. And it's weird because sometimes when I'm not inspired or I feel like I don't have ideas, like the one thing that does help me is like just calling my grandma, I guess, which is the only creative, I guess, in our family. She used to have a floral store back in the day, and she, she cooks a lot. She's the one taught me to cook. Like I would sit in them every morning in the kitchen and just like watch her cook. And like at some point when I was older, like she would just cook with me, and like she was kind of like that one creative like family member I had. And she's also my biggest critic. Like I sometimes send her like a new project or like a mural, and she'd be like, you didn't do well on that one. Like I don't like the palette or something. I was like, great, thanks, grandma. Like she's like very direct and tells me what she likes or not. Or sometimes like if I send her something and I don't hear anything, I know she doesn't like it. So it's very interesting how like our relationship, and we're pretty similar, I think, as personalities too. We also the same sign. We both January kids, and I think maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah, I think just calling her or cooking or making a dish and just like talking to her about what I'm trying to do gives me like enough inspiration, or just going like out, I guess, in the world and like being inspired by like the everyday things and shapes and you find in nature, and even the man-made shapes you find in nature. I think I like things that I mostly am inspired by, and some textures of them in my work as well. But yeah, I really try hard not to like be like that Pinterest mood board.
Right.
Like obviously for branding projects, like you kind of have to do that to like present a world to a client. But for my personal work, I don't need a mood board for my pillow or or my mural, right? Because like that should come like from within me rather than from other places. So
is there also, that makes total sense. Is there also maybe like a concern that if you allow yourself to start, looking too long at these different artists and their work on Pinterest or wherever, that it's going to be kind of almost too influential, and then it becomes like either a concern of competition or a concern that you're going to kind of like copy paste or quote things too heavily?
I mean, I believe, or I hope, I personally, that I would never be able to do that. I hope that is true. But that it happens right now in a world that there's like so much copy happening because it's so easy. And like, I think almost every day on Instagram, when I look through stories or something, someone is complaining about something being copied from either like people, just random people, or other designers, or even like big companies, like, the big ones that exist out there. So I think there's a lot of that happening just because it's so easy to do. And that kind of makes me uncomfortable and like frustrated. And I also don't really know what to do about it, because like I looked into protecting my work, and I'm in the process in doing that right now, just because it just happens too often that you are copied. And I think but then again, like I would never go after someone that just like one person. I would probably like tell them about it, but I wouldn't and I would ask them to stop or something like that politely, but I wouldn't, try to go after them or anything ever, just because like I put my work out there and it's there, and, be inspired, but inspired is a little different than being copied.
Sure.
But like, I think I need to protect myself in a way for like the bigger companies and entities that might do that. So like, I think because, it happens just way too much, and often the artists and the designers are like kind of the ones that can't really do anything about it, just because the companies have way more power and are bigger and all that stuff. So I'm just like currently looking into that as I grow, to like see what I can do to just like protect myself for things. But which is a weird one to even be in that space is weird. And I think the only solution I found to like overcome those moments where you're like, oh God, that's like a direct copy, what to do kind of thing. It's like, I think the best thing is like, obviously you can be mad a couple hours about it, which is a natural thing. And then I think it's like, go and create more, right? Like just be ahead of that curve in a way, and just like keep like creating and kind of growing and like expanding your work. And hopefully the person that knows my work will actually purchase my work or ask for my work rather than the copy. So I think that's just like the one thing that like keeps us sane, I think. It's just like kind of like, okay, whatever, well, cool, let's keep going kind of thing. And just be ahead of that in a way. So I truly hope and believe that even if I would look at Pinterest and Instagram for like 80 hours, like I hope I would not just like copy paste stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a weird kind of, I don't know, filtering, translation, a synthesis process that happens, I think, for creatives when they look at things and it filters into their own work. Some have very clear references that are very present and strong in their work, and they acknowledge it and they're fine with it, and others maybe less so. Here's a question regarding style, because you have a particular kind of aesthetic. Do you envision yourself evolving far past that or trying to do something wildly different? Do you feel like maybe perhaps adhering, if you would use that word, adhering to a certain kind of direction or style is limiting?
It's interesting. I think about that like almost every day. I think it's like the question of like, how can I grow? Or how can I like do other things, like not other things, not other styles necessarily, but I think just just evolve in a way. I don't even know how to like put that into words, but also like be relevant for a long time. Like how do you do that? And I think I'm not sure if you've seen, I just released like a painting collection a couple of weeks ago, but I really used that opportunity of like when I was painting 9 paintings for this gallery, I was just like, okay, cool. I could do 9 paintings in exact the same style that I'm doing right now and that everyone knows, or I can try to like explore like a different world in it, but still be mine. And I think, some I just like made it even more minimal than my work already is. And then some I made like I took one of my pieces and then made it like kind of a repetition, almost like as if you would have like a step and repeat like pattern, which is like a new thing for me. And I think it's still from the core, it comes from like the same place, but I'm just trying to like take them into different spaces like visually, and it's really hard to do, but also like I don't want to just start like painting only black and red paintings that have nothing to do with me, and people wouldn't even be able to like put it, like see it and be like who's like they like I kind of want to keep it in the realm that makes people excited about my work, and also people know it's my work, but then push it kind of further and see where it can go. But I don't know, I haven't figured it out. I'm just experimenting with it like every day almost, and thinking about it all the time. And I think the most scary thing is like the relevancy. Like I'm just like, okay, it's going well right now. For how much longer? I'm just like, oh God, like will I need to find like a normal job in a year or two? Like I think it just goes through my mind all the time, but I feel like I'm trying not to stress out too much, just because, even though it looks like it's still all the same, like it took me a while to even get to this language. And I think even without seeing the baby steps that are coming through every piece I do, like I think there is evolvement in it. So I feel like if I just continue doing what I do, I hope that, it always becomes something new, even though it's like connected to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a fantastic answer. And I mean, let's also, state the obvious that it's not like you've been doing this style for the past 50 years, right? I mean, all of us are still quite young in a sense. So there's a lot of room there. But I really like the idea that, you have an understanding of kind of the core, and it's probably also something you just feel naturally, right? When something's not jiving or doesn't feel natural. But then also you kind of like consciously inject, like change the variables just a little bit to see how that core principles or core whatever gets kind of tested. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
This strikes me that there are potential differences between art and design. And as designers, for Marina and I, there are different ways we can test to understand whether or not a design is good. And there obvious ones are functional things, right? Like if you're designing a door handle, right? Well, does it work? Is it easy to grab on these kinds of things? But for the world of, let's say, that's more on the art side, for like the murals and the pillows and for the pools and for the sculptures, how do you know if something is good?
That's a good one.
I don't think you do. I think it's also like, as I said before, of the posters where I have like almost 1,500 and half of them I really don't like. And there's a couple that I would never sell. Like there's no way I will sell them, right? So, but there's enough interest in them, of all of them, that I'm just like kind of like, okay, interesting. Like art doesn't need to be good just because I find it good or I like it. There's like people, see something else in it or something different in it, and they feel something. I hope they feel something when looking at my work, whatever it is. And I think I totally judge all my work that I do by my own personal like gut feeling. If I like it, if that makes me like feel something, or if I feel I look at the pillow design or something that I did and I get the sample and there's something that I can't put my words like my word on it or like my finger on it to be like it's off, but I don't know what it is. Like I'm not going to put it out there, but whatever that feeling and that like reaction in me is, that's what I do. And I think also with colors, I just like I never like plan out colors. I kind of like choose them, and most of the time the first iteration of them is like what I go with and like my gut feels good about. And I think as soon as a client is like, oh, can we change the red into a yellow, I'm like, sure. And then I do it and then like, yeah, no, let's keep the red, right? So like I think it's just like intuition, and I think not everyone likes my work, right? I can't make everyone love my work, and taste is so like broad and different that I'm just like I'm happy if some people like my work and feel the same way I feel about it. And if a work is good or not, I think it's very subjective in like the in like the art world to say that. And there's so much art that I really appreciate and I would purchase for myself in my home. But then there's a lot of art that I don't like, right? And there's no real reason why I don't like it. Like it's just like the feeling it gives you.
That makes sense.
And I'm a designer too, so it's like a whole different thing, like with art and design. So like, yeah, I guess I'm still a designer at heart.
I feel like it's kind of an ambiguous
threshold.
Boundary, threshold between what is design, what is art, when does one start and when does the other end, right? Especially if, for example, for your practice, you're super multidisciplinary, different types of medium. I feel like I kind of like that you're kind of blurring the limitations and the limits of things.
I'm just thinking about that Proba house. That's the only thing out of my mind at the moment. I want to see it.
I want it.
Like, what would be an Alex Proba door handle? I bet it would be cool.
Yeah, it would be fun. I already have some ideas. But yeah, like, let's make it happen if someone wants to sponsor this.
Is there something you struggled with the most in, I don't know, your work or your process or life, even in general?
Nice. I feel the hardest is not having being you being the center of it, right? Like if you work for a company, you work for a client and the client is like the center of it, and you kind of like want to please them and make what's right for them and create their identity or whatever whatsoever that is like reflects them and their business best. And I think the really hard part is like I'm running my business, but I'm running it mostly with my work. And obviously there's like commissions that I do that like, or branding projects that I do that are not really like the work I did for Harry's is not really like, you can maybe tell by maybe by colors or like how I put them together. Maybe you can tell from far away, or maybe Alex did this, but I don't think you can because it's not my brand, right? It's a new brand for like another client and it has like nothing to do with my shapes and anything. So I think the hardest part is just like creating work that is essentially me and then being by myself doing it and having like no feedback other than my grandma's or my boyfriend, right? Like there's like in companies, you have a team and you like put ideas out and you collaborate and you work together and then like, oh shit, I didn't think about this. This is a great idea. Like, I don't have that. Like, it's just literally like me being like bouncing idea of myself basically all day long. And I think that's the hardest that I am dealing with. And so it's nice to have sometimes like I mentioned, like that one designer I work a lot with, she's in Paris. Like, even though she's in Paris, like sometimes I get stuck in something and like, okay, can you tell me what you would do in this situation? And I can draw, like, do some drawings or whatever it is. Like, I think it just helps to have this other person there. And I think that's why I'm known for collaborations. Like, I think that I did a lot of collaborations and I still do a lot of them because I think, they just like bring two worlds together, two worlds that actually, I mean, you choose with who you collaborate with, right? So like, both parties need to like each other work and see the work together. So I think obviously those collaborations are a little easier, but still you have the other person on the other side that, learn something from you and you learn a lot from them, and you have that back and forth at, like, all the time to like create this new thing together. And I think that's one big reason why I still do so many collaborations is because of that, because I miss the team kind of like work, and I miss like the back and forth, and it's really hard because I've hired designers before and like asked them to work in my world, and then I see it and I'm like, no, that's not my world, right? Like, so like it's really hard to like have like people do my thing because it's so deep inside of me and it's like so close to me that even though they think it looks like what I would do because it's tree shapes, let's say, right? I just don't feel anything about it. And I think literally the only person that gets close to what I want is the girl in Paris, and she hands down like always understands what I want or need or do, and she like pushes me further often. And it's great because you have like this other brain that understands you as a brand, understands you as a person, and then kind of like knows when like where to push or not to push. And it's been really hard because like I'm good in hiring people like for the branding project. Like it's easy to find great designers that do great type and have good understanding of like brands, and and you work together and you create something great for the client. But as soon as it touches me and my brand, it's really hard to find someone to do it, and then I end up being the one doing it, obviously, because it's it's me. So I think the key is those collaborations to like keep me like sane in a way, and just like involved with other people. Or the workshops with the kids were amazing just because you just like surrounded by kids, and they're just making amazing collages without really thinking about it, right? They just like glue stuff on and put it on the paper, and they don't think which color they use or not to use, and in the end it's really cool things that they do. And so I think that's like the hardest of like running a business that is like coming from your work kind of thing, if that makes sense.
I get it. That's also interesting because I think for a lot of like designers and architects who their world is primarily, all their work is involving a client, it's almost the opposite, right? It's like, oh, I'm so tired of having to deal with other people. I just want to do my own thing. But as you said, there's this other end of the spectrum where when you are really on your own very often, it's like you really have to be confident in what you're doing, and you have to be able to think existentially and stay sane and all of these things.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of people think I'm bigger than I am. I'm not sure what people really think how big my business is, but I often get emails from like people, and they're just like, like, dear press person at Studio Proba, or like, dear like distributor, and I'm like, no, it's all Alex. Like, there's no
Alex
there's
1,
nothing
Alex 2, Alex 3.
Because they're like, we don't know if this is the right address to complain about shipping, but and, so it's like it's all like those things also fall on me, and it's funny because they like so not creative, right? Like all these things, and but maybe they're just a good balance to like, I don't know, take a break for a little bit. But it's just funny because and then with the murals too, like it's been interesting this year because normally when I get a mural request, rarely I get two at the same time. So sometimes I get them and they're at the same week that they need to be painted because construction is ending or whatever it is. And then I have to kind of like make a choice which one to do. Or sometimes I actually tell the client, hey, I can send my assistant, and then I come the last few days, whatever it is, right? Like, and they always are like, no, we want you. And I'm like, okay, well, I get it, but I can't do it because I'm already booked for something else. And that's a bummer, right? Because I can't really expand in that way, because the client obviously wants the artist to be there and painted. And it's been interesting this year because of COVID, obviously traveling is like very restricted, and clients that previously wouldn't allow that, this year they were just like, okay, let's try it, you know?
Right.
So like, I just finished up a mural in Bogota in Colombia, my second one that I wasn't part of, which is really super weird because normally I'm there, I know exactly which like line to do and which edge to paint again or whatever it is. But I painted one already there, and with like an amazing assistant down there, and he's like super talented and really great to work with. So I asked him if he can do it, and he's like, sure, I can try. And then it took a little longer than maybe with me there because of like a lot of like, you know, color matching issues and things like that, which is not his fault at all. But then I was literally just like, he would send me photos of every shape or something he drew, he like painted, and then I would like draw on like WhatsApp, like on the images, which corner to round and what to change and what to straighten. And then he would just like, okay, cool, let me fix that real quick. And then he would like paint and then send me another photo. And that was like a week of doing that. And then he just finished not long, like 2 weeks ago, and it looks amazing. And he did like a great job, and the client is happy and everyone is happy, which is interesting because now I'm just like, maybe there's a way to expand this, right? Because COVID kind of made us do like accept those instances. And obviously that client is happy about the result, but they were like, but you're coming for the next one. I'm like, okay, you know, so like, so I get it, right? Because like with the murals, like they basically, it's like buying art. It's not really, so I think they've won obviously the artist to paint it, but so there's like like expansion is like a hard one for me, I think, because so much just comes from me and I need to be part of it. But again, with that experiment in Colombia, like it worked really great. So maybe there is a way to like do that.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I mean, that makes sense to us as well. You know, it's like, why not have this other person who's an expert and you trust on the other side of the world or wherever be kind of your extended hands? Like it could work quite well. I mean, the idea of expanding is also, we're coming up on the time, but it's also interesting because as you were saying, when you're the person at the center and the work is very personal to you and you have a very close relationship with the work, and it's almost like sometimes you can't even put into words why something works or doesn't work. You know, the idea of, let's say in the future that you had to have, I don't know, 3 employees or something, and they were having to learn kind of your way, like that transference of knowledge is a really fascinating and difficult question, I feel.
Yeah, and is that even possible in that way?
Right.
Like you can transfer like knowledge for sure, and you can transfer technique, and you can do all of that. And I think that everyone that, for example, painted or worked with me, like you can totally do that, and like they can like take their own stance on it. But I think transferring like what's like within me and why I create those things, like I think that's a hard one, right? Like the why of why I do things is like a hard one to answer. And then obviously like the first time someone paints with me, like they think it's actually pretty straightforward and easy just because it's, you know, flat shapes on a wall. But the problem is I don't tape. I do everything freehand, and the lines I kind of expect them to be as done on the computer, and that's probably my graphic design background. Like I don't want paint stroke on them. I want them to be like super like flat as possible, and you know, have the patterns and the line be the dimensionality of it. And I think a lot of classic trained painters, like they don't think like that. They just think about a stroke is great, like paintbrush, and it is for a lot of other work. Just like in my work, I kind of have a hard time including it, and sometimes I want to embrace it, but it's really hard. And then a lot of people have really hard time of like making a straight line with paint without tape or whatever it is, or you know, so I can transfer that technique and like exactly tell them like the easiest way to do this is like that way, and then they actually figure it out and do it. But I think like actually translating like what I want in my heart, what I feel that I want to put on that paper to make this a rug or a pillow, that's the hard part. And I've so far just found about the one girl in Paris that like comes close to it, right? Because I don't know, she just comes close to it, and there's probably a lot of people that can. And I mean, it's a weird one because, as I said in the beginning of the sorry, my voice. Our conversation is that a lot of people call me up for like mentoring and like tell me the path, what step shall I do? And I think all that I can talk through, but I don't have the answers because I never answered them myself. I just like went for it. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question at all, but
No, it does, because I think there is something inherent to all of us that we bring to the table. You know, like you said, the why kind of question, and it's an argument could easily be made that that's not transferable. That's to you, and someone else might have overlaps, but they're going to bring whatever background they have to the work as well.
Mm-hmm.
Unless someone finds an exact clone from you that their family's from Poland and they moved to Germany, then maybe.
That would be cool. I could need that clone.
Yeah, right. Final question then is, what's next?
I'm hoping for like everyone to have a better 2021 than 2020, and I know there's no normal and we don't want to go back to the normal. We just want to go back to something that's better, I guess. And I feel hopeful that, you know, like I can go back to like traveling and like, you know, expressing myself throughout like the country and also the world, and just like painting murals again, getting more pools, getting maybe doing the Proba house. But it's like one of my big things is like I think a lot of people know my work in the United States, I think, and obviously there's like some that, you know, through Instagram it reaches other countries as well. And but at some point I want to be back in Europe and be close to my family, which this year, you know, totally made me learn the lesson that how important family is, and the further you're away, it's actually really hard. And you know, everyone is getting older. My brother just had his second kid 6 months ago, and I still haven't met her. And I think there's like a lot of things that, you know, this year showed us that is important. And so I'm kind of like hoping for more like European projects and mural projects to be able to like, you know, make that happen one day, to maybe even be split time between the US and Germany, or US and Europe, wherever in Europe I would be. So I think that's kind of like the next big thing I'm thinking about.
Oh, us too.
I know.
Let's get out there.
I feel you on this. Being away from family is difficult. It is.
Yeah.
My last question is, do you have a favorite color?
A favorite color? Interesting. I don't think I do. I mean, my work, just look behind me, right? But my work is so super colorful, and I think it doesn't use every color. It's like a specific kind of like tones of colors that I use and shades. But I think I don't have a specific color that I like most, but what I wear most is black and gray. Like I'm super boring, and people that don't know me and meet me, that are like, oh, we expected you like to wear this colorful dress or whatever it is. And I just don't really do that. I sometimes like have a color, like one color jacket or something, but I'm very different. Like I'm different than my work is, which is funny. But if it comes to like colors at home, like I feel like you need color, and a lot of people are just super afraid of it. And like my mom's house is super monotone just because she's like afraid of color, which I don't understand. But I think, you know, like I need personally color in my life that is surrounds me, not on me. But I think I like purple currently a lot, which I didn't like a couple of years ago, but now like a lot of purples going around, and like it probably influenced me as well. But it's like a pleasing color. But a couple of years ago, I was like really into like a light green, and I think it just goes through phases with me.
Gotcha.
Wait, why do you wear all black and grays? Why not color?
Maybe the architecture experience. No, I'm kidding. No, can't be the answer for everything. I don't know. I just really like, I wore black and gray and neutrals. I'd say neutrals. Okay. I wore like beige and cream. I like the neutral, like kind of like simplicity. Like back in college when COS started, like in Europe, like that was kind of, I was like, oh, this is perfect. I have the perfect palette. And they kind of like a good example for, you know, just like being like really monotone and elegant, but then having like one color of the season kind of thing. So I don't know. It's just, I don't think cost influenced me in that, but I think it's a good example on just like what I like, or just like even Japanese like designers and stuff. It's just the more elegant in a way, and wearing color nicely and elegantly is hard to do. And I think a lot of people are really great in it. I'm just not that person. And I think I'm better with applying the color into the world rather than on me.
Oh, I like it. Well, this has been fantastic. We really enjoyed having you on the show and hearing all of your stories and insights and everything else.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun. My first podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Congrats.
Thanks for tuning into this week. If you like what we're doing, if you like this show, then please leave us a review in the iTunes app, right? The Apple Podcast app. That's the best way to support our show. Go there, leave a review, leave your comment. You can also find us on Spotify, Stitcher, pretty much all the other podcast databases or platforms. We're there.
Yeah. We are also on YouTube. So this interview, as well as most of the others, are on there. If you want a visual, go check it out. Subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment if you want to, give us any feedbacks on it. We're also on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yep.
And we have a hotline.
And we have a hotline, which is 213-222-6950. You can call or text it. If you call it, it goes straight to voicemail. Then we'll play your recording on the show. But if you're like, I'm too afraid to have my voice out there, then just shoot us a text and we'll cover it in an upcoming episode. The hotline's actually worked out quite well. So again, that's 213-222-6950. Thanks again to our guest, Alex. She was fantastic. And we hope you guys enjoyed it, the listeners. And by now, it's the new year, so thank you for listening and staying with us throughout the past whatever period of time that we've been existing and making it through 2020 and on to the next one, right?
Yeah, some exciting stuff coming up for you guys this year, so stay tuned.
Cool. Talk to you again next week or sooner. Thanks, bye.
Bye-bye.